with the next total solar eclipse approaching being a unique event where we're going to end up with total solar eclipse followed by sunset partial eclipse. You may be wondering whether or not you can capture a scenic photo of that partial sunset with the surrounding landscape. I have photographed 2 sunrise partial eclipses in recent years, so I wanted to share some experience on that and some tests that I did with various filters leading up to the last event. So what do I mean by partial solar eclipse sunrise? This is one I captured in 2021, Grand Marais in northern Michigan. I had planned to try to shoot the sunrise rising over Lake Superior. However, the clouds got in my way of that, and I ended up with this very lucky, only lasted a few seconds opportunity to shoot a bracketed exposure through the clouds in this little window, and luckily got something usable out of it. So this is an example of a partial eclipse in the early morning light. This was actually up a little ways, probably 10 to 15 degrees in the sky when it appeared through this window. So I thought with the partial that was happening in 2025, maybe I could get ocean shot rising up over the ocean. Didn't actually work out that way, but we'll get into that later. Getting ready for that, I did a series of tests with some filters that I owned and some filters that I was purchasing along the way to try to get set up to photograph this eclipse. So I did a series of tests photographing available sunrises as the eclipse event was approaching, just to try to figure out whether or not I could shoot this with a bare lens, whether I needed a ND filter, whether I needed a solar filter, and I saved all of those, and I thought I'd share them with you here so you can kind of see and compare and decide for yourself what kind of equipment you might want to use to try to photograph this sunset partial eclipse that's coming up. Starting with no filter, this is with a 200mm lens. These are off of my Canon R7, and I shot 2 7-stop brackets. One was programmed to custom function 1, the other programmed to custom function 2. My goal was to try to get definition out of the sun and also have enough light on the landscape to have a scenic photo. So there's my first 7, here's my second 7. And the bare lens does work as we're down low here on the horizon. As the sun gets higher up, it gets hot really fast, and you definitely need a filter once it's up a little bit. This is an Orion telescope filter that I bought several years ago, and it fit over the front of my Canon 70-200, so I shot this at 200 just to test. I really like the color that comes off of this. In fact, that initial photo that I showed you that I shot in northern Michigan, that was shot through that filter, and it has this beautiful orange because of the metal coated glass that that's made out of. But unfortunately, it has an artifact on the screen here, which is this massive amount of flare that gets created as it's reflecting. I think it's because as it's mirrored on both sides, I think that mirrored part right there is reflecting back off of the lens and creating that very distracting lens flare. Now, it looks like I missed focus a little bit on this. It's not super crispy, but this lens flare is what I was concerned about with that filter. I love the deep orange tones that it creates. I think that that's really appealing, but Just wanted to show you that. This is next one is a Thousand Oaks filter, which is a film, and that filter looks like this. Again, this was a 77 millimeter that I shot off of my 200 millimeter lens. Now this is not glass, it's not as clear. It's a Mylar film, and you know, to my eyes, this wasn't going to work. This wasn't a clear enough filter for me to get the kind of capture that I wanted out of a scenic photo. So again, this is the Thousand Oaks film. I think this is the silver black film. The NiSi. So I had a NiSi filter. I don't currently have this one. And this was their solar filter, 77 millimeter on my 200 millimeter lens. Very clean, good color tone. Like that one a lot. I think that was a contender here, which is why I have this compare folder on my screen. We'll look at that in a bit. Again, the Orion. Okay, here we have the Orion filter again with the artifact here. Also this streak. So then what I did is I took the Orion filter and I tipped it. Because it's a telescope filter, it doesn't thread on. I was able to put this on the front of my lens but tip it slightly to try to move that lens flare off of the lens. And this is what I ended up with, was this really bright streak down through the middle. Look at that cool texture that orange creates though in the clouds. Man, I really like that a lot. This is a Thousand Oaks filter. This is a different Thousand Oaks filter with a different film. And I got this so that it would fit over my Sigma 150 to 600. I was planning to shoot that at 400 millimeters. And again, this particular Thousand Oaks film, not clear enough for what I needed. Just could not get it to show the landscape and be clear. So at that point I scratched the Thousand Oaks film filters off the list. I don't have this one in front of me. This is the Urth graduated 3-stop. So this is a clear on the bottom, ND filter on the top, so that I could filter the sun. And this one actually looked really good. Really good. So that's definitely an option when the sun is down low to shoot a graduated filter. It's just it gets so bright so fast, the sun does, once it gets up a little ways. Here, of course, we're way overexposing. But, you know, something like this, that's a really nice look. Right here, a little bit brighter. Maybe get some definition out of that. K&F. Shot this at 400 millimeter, 95 millimeter filter. One of these. This is the K&F Nano X filter. And I did contact them before buying it and ask them if it was neutral, if it had an orange cast to it. They said it was just a little bit of a yellow cast and it was not neutral. So I was really actually happy that they responded to me, because it seems harder and harder nowadays to get companies to respond to inquiries about products. But yeah, this filter looks great. So we're way overexposed there. I just want to show you my brackets. And, you know, that's what all do I have in here? Just those. The NiSi 200 millimeter filter again. Oh, you know what? I forgot something. So the NiSi looks great too. I thought that the K&F, I mean, you know, if you could get that look on the sun with the clouds coming through it, with blend it with the foreground, that could look really nice. I had a compare folder over here, and that was comparing the NiSi and the Orion, because I really like the orange look of the Orion, but the NiSi is really a nice filter. And, you know, the artifacts on the Orion telescope filter are just too much. I love the coloration of it, but I can't handle the flare. So the NiSi on the 200 millimeter looked great. I didn't have any issues with that. It was a really well-performing filter on the 200. And so I bought one for my other lens, 95 millimeter. And I didn't have it yet here in this. Okay, this is a B&W 10-stop ND filter. So this isn't solar filter level at like 16 stops. This is a 10-stop, but very clean. This particular morning the sun wasn't as bright. You can see there's some haze, and but I could get some good definition out of that 10-stop ND. It looked great. That's definitely an option for this next eclipse for me. Bare. Okay, so this is no filter. 400 millimeters, no filter on that morning. The sun wasn't super bright. You could definitely photograph it without any issue. Let's see what this was. 1/2000th of a second, f11. This is my Sigma 150 to 600, which is sharper at f11 than it is at f8. So I use that lens there. And then the K&F 95 millimeter again. Looks really good. Okay, another morning testing the K&F against my, at that time, new NiSi filter. This is definitely a brighter sun. You can see as it comes up, it's just immediately blowing out. So that NiSi filter is another 95 millimeter screw-on filter. And I put that on after the K&F, so now the sun's a little higher, and it looks like I bumped my focus out there, and with a 95 millimeter on that particular lens, I'm getting a lot of flare. And I didn't get that at 200 with my 77 millimeter. What do my notes say? Drag this up so you can see it. NiSi was same settings as K&F, but this was a very bright sun morning. So let's look at those again. K&F. And of course the sun is down low. It's not even 50% exposed there. But then by the time I'm switching filters and coming over here, now it's up. And it's bright, but this lens flare is what I was hoping to avoid, and had it. Baader film. So this is another film option. I bought a telescope filter that has Baader film in it, and the Baader film is actually an option for shooting a scene. It's still not as clear as glass, but if you had it and you didn't want to invest in another filter, like maybe you're buying expensive 95 millimeter filters, here's where you can get to. Almost usable. No flare, pretty clean. the K&F that same morning. Looks good. Tones in it look good. That little bit of yellowish cast that it does have, I kind of like the warmth of it. And it was real clean image. Did another test with the NiSi, and there's the lens flare again with the NiSi coming through. No filter that morning. So you get into this range and here, you know, and you can potentially bump up your shadows, and let's see where we were at, 1/4000th of a second. Another test with the Baader film. Sun was higher in the sky this morning when I got there, so I wasn't like a true sunrise test. This is a sun is already in the sky test. But that could be really useful since we're going to be looking at a sunset eclipse this next time. Here's the K&F. Pretty clear scene. You know, you can get there. And the NiSi once again, because I was trying to figure out whether I'm using the NiSi or the K&F at this point. And I mean, this did it for me. You know, having that artifact, it's not something I can just edit out of a photo. So that's where we were. And so I decided on the K&F Nano X because it gave me the least amount of artifacts with my sunrise. Did not give me the lens flare. It gave me a usable clear scene. It gave me cloud structure with a sun that's not too blown out, and I felt like I could probably make something out of that. So we headed off to Maine to try to shoot the partial sunrise eclipse coming up over the ocean. I thought that would be really cool. And unfortunately, we got hit with a massive storm, and we ended up having to drive 4 hours north of where we were to get to the north side of that storm. I tried to pick out some areas that weren't too wooded, that maybe I could see for a ways, and ended up at a radio station in the parking lot. I thought it was flat out back, but it wasn't. There was a hill. So what I ended up with was, and these are straight out of camera, I ended up with the partial eclipse with through the K&F filter, 95 millimeter. This is shot at 400 millimeters off my Sigma 150 to 600 contemporary. And I didn't keep my whole 7 on any of these because some of them were too underexposed, some were too overexposed. So I went through and picked out what I actually wanted to process and then see what the end result was. So I focused on the trees, which are nice and crisp here. And we had that cool eclipse rising up out of there. I just didn't like that the horizon looks like it's not level, because it looks like I'm shooting on an angle here because of the hill. And the other thing with the hill is that I couldn't shoot the sun as low on the horizon as what I wanted to. So see how the K&F has these little flares all around it, these little these crescent shaped, you know, reflections of the sun. There was no way to know that that was going to happen with the tests that I did, because I didn't see anything in my tests that would indicate this was going to happen. And of course, with a full sunrise, you can't really test a shaped sunrise from an eclipse. But these are what I ended up with. Some of my keepers. This one I really liked a lot because I was able to get the whole eclipse, but then with the separation of the trees there, I thought that that was really kind of cool. And it takes away from the distraction of the hill, I think. So then I reframed and tried to shoot a scene once we got up here a ways so that we could see that the ground was in fact level. And I have 5 of these exposures. 2, 3, 4, 5. And kept 5 of my 7 brackets there. And I think that this is the one I actually used. One of these two. I don't remember which one I processed. If it's 70 or 71. So after I shot that scene, I shot some partials with the filter. This is again just showing you the K&F filter. Something that I thought was really great, and maybe it was just atmospheric conditions, I don't really know, but look at the edge detail that I got on this. The edge detail of the sun and the edge detail of the moon. This was surprising to me. I mean, because it looks like actual detail. And I don't know if it's an artifact from the atmosphere that morning on the backside of the storm, or because it was like 4 degrees outside. But we had some clouds, some wispy clouds we were shooting through. And again, this is the Canon R7. This is my 150 to 600 Sigma, and this is at 600. This lens does really good through 500 as far as clarity. At 600 it loses some, but I was playing around and I thought, well, I'm going to use it. And yeah, I just thought that this detail was pretty interesting because it's on all my partial shots. So, and all of the sunspot activity. So anyway, I shot some normal partials. I did a couple composites of the partials. What I did with these is because of the clouds that were there, they didn't really show on the partials. And what I did here is I blended, I think I did it this way. I blended these as layers in Photoshop through a black layer. And I did a hard light blend through the black layer, and it created the shadowing from the clouds on these. I thought it looked kind of cool, something different. Haven't seen anybody have a look like this, so just thought I'd share it. Again, there's that edge detail and the sunspots, and yeah. I shot these at a really high shutter speed. I bumped my ISO up, so I was shooting 400. I shot these at 1/2000th of a second. Just because I'd struggled in the past to get some really clear, crisp eclipse photos, I wanted to do some experimentation and shoot some really fast shutter speeds with higher ISO. And I'm definitely going to do that on this next eclipse with my partials, with my shots where I don't have a filter on. I'm bumping my ISO up to at least 400, possibly 800, just to shoot faster shutter speeds so that I can get nice, crisp, clean images. Doing this experimentation and playing around with zooming in on the sun, zooming in on sunspots, and trying to get my focus nailed, I realized that on a breezy day like this was, my camera never stops moving. Even on a tripod, it's constantly got this vibration. And when you zoom into 10x on your viewfinder or on your screen on the back of the camera, as you're trying to focus on the sun on this little tiny screen, it's wiggling like the whole time. So when I was playing with that, I was like, well, I'm going to bump my ISO higher, and I'm going to bump my shutter speed higher to try to freeze that motion and get some clear images. So yeah, I'm happy with how those turned out. So that's the experiment that I did. The tests that I did, running through, trying to photograph sunrisers to prep for that particular trip. And the next total solar eclipse in 26 is going to have some really cool opportunities for a sunset partial eclipse scene photo. So I'm definitely going to shoot, I will shoot partials like these up through the actual eclipse when we're just about to totality and we're pulling our filters for all those diamond ring shots, transitioning into total, transitioning back out. When I come back out of that eclipse, I'm not going to shoot any of these. I'm just going to focus on trying to shoot some scenic sunset partial eclipse photos. And hopefully we have clear skies, and hopefully I have the opportunity to do it where I want to do it. And yeah, that's it. Thought I'd share this. I hope that you have some amazing photography adventures, and hopefully this helped you out. Good luck on your photography journey, and we'll see you next time.